Welcome to another episode of Is This Toxic? With your friendly host from PrimalHacker. Today, if you couldn't guess, we're going to talk about shoes, sneakers, boots, those things you wear on your feet. And the main question we want to ask is, what should we be wearing so that we're wearing the stuff that keeps our body optimally healthy? That's always the question we want to answer. So let's just look at this. This is from Nike. So I deal with toxic chemicals a lot in my work, as we talked about before. My background is trained as a chemical engineer. I spent a decade developing beauty care and pharmaceuticals. I then spent 10 years looking at toxic chemicals in office and home furniture. And now I run global regulations for toxic chemicals in products for a company that does furniture, apparel, towels, dishes, you name it. So I have a lot of knowledge about this stuff. And the first question we're asking ourselves is, if your shoes that you're wearing or the sneakers that you're wearing are beneficial for you, then why does Nike have this huge restricted substance list? So if you're joining online, we're looking at the Nike restricted substance list, and we're going to get down to page 36 here. And I think it's pretty important. They're going to talk through, we're just looking at the PDF that they put out. And I want to show you the list of chemicals that just Nike alone. Now, most shoe companies probably have never even heard of restricted chemicals or toxic chemicals that could be in shoes. Nike has a huge list. We're just kind of flipping through. Up here, we've got prioritization process, how Nike prioritizes which chemicals to ban in their footwear. Why are you banning chemicals in footwear if they're not toxic, right? So they must be toxic. And what they're banning are PFAS chemicals. It's the acronym PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances. These things are in everything from towels to carpeting to furniture to your car to the airplanes, because they're stain and non-stick coatings. And people want to make sure that they don't have all these sticky things attaching to their textiles, meaning that you're going to have all this stuff in your textiles that come off and potentially affect you. Let's see if I can bring that version back up that we had here. I'm not exactly sure how we did that. Okay, so we're going to flip through perfluoroalkyl substances build up in your blood and in the environment, and they're in the water because of DuPont and 3M and other companies like that were manufacturing things like Scotchgard, and then just throwing barrels of that stuff. Literally, they were burying barrels in the dirt. Those barrels over time degraded and then leaked into the water supply. Clean water. This isn't like surface water that people were pulling off of rivers. This was aquifers deep underground that this stuff seeped into over many years, and now it's in the water supply. And the EPA has finally decided to limit the amount that can be present in water. They weren't doing that before, meaning you could be drinking pure water that had so much of this chemical in it that it could almost be 80% of that chemical, let's just say. And there was no restriction on the amount that could be present. Now there is, and people are becoming aware of this, and they're trying to keep it out of things like the footwear that you're putting on your feet every day, because it can get into your blood, it can get into the dust, and then you breathe it in, and then that accumulates in your blood and your fat cells, and then when we breastfeed, we feed it back to our children. It gets into the environment. So again, we're just scrolling through this Nike list. I want to get us to page 35 to show you this list of chemicals that they restrict or ban in their products, because it's not a small list. And this is one of the things I don't know that people are aware of. This is a publicly available list you can go find yourself. And we're quickly getting to the page that I want to show you with the list of chemicals on their RSL, Restricted Substance List. And let's just take a look. So we're on almost page 1. So here's their list finally, and it starts with grouping it into footwear, apparel, etc. So the list begins with Nike Restricted Substances List. And on the first page, there are 6 chemicals listed, and they give the limits that they allow and some reasons why they would be used in the product. So all the chemicals they're listing could be used in footwear. So there's 6 on the first page. We go to the second page. Oh my gosh, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. There's about 25 chemicals on this page, all within the azoamine category. These are dyes, toxic dyes. We go to the next page, there's about 6 chemicals again, and these are bisphenols chemicals. Those are things that would be in polycarbonate type plastics, and they release bisphenol A, called BPA, and that could be mutagenic and affect people's development. And then we're still going. We're on the next page. There's about 10 chemicals on this page that are in the chlorinated category. So these are chlorinated chemicals that are used in rubbers most often. So there's these rubbers they use, obviously, in shoes for the soles and other parts of the shoes, the inner linings, and they can be toxic. So go to the next page. There's about 25 chemicals on the next page, which are chlorine carriers. We go to the next page. We go to this dimethyl fumarate, DMF, and DMF is in polyurethane. Most people don't know that there's a lot of polyurethane that's used in the both textile, seating, and shoe wear industry. And it kind of can mimic leather in some cases. Other cases, it's just made to be a shiny type textile that can be used for whatever application they're putting it on the shoe, but it gives off this gas called DMF, dimethylformamide or dimethyl fumarate. And that DMF gas can be toxic in large quantities or in smaller quantities over time. And it's basically a solvent that's used to disperse this polyurethane into and then spray it on the textile to make it look like a leather. And that's used in a lot of vegan shoes. And that can be very toxic. So you have to beware. Don't just buy shoes because they say vegan or healthy. You have to know that sometimes the vegan materials can be very unhealthy. They might be avoiding animal products, certainly. And if that's your thing, that's great. But make sure you're purchasing low-emitting textiles on those products that are not going to make you sick later on down the line. We're on the next page. There's about 20 chemicals on this next page, which are in the colorant category. Lots of colorants are added to textiles that are damaging to the environment, not necessarily to you, but can be very damaging to the environment. And so Nike is banning those. And the next page is another 15 or 20 chemicals. These are flame retardant chemicals that often appear in foams and rubbers. And mostly because those foams and rubbers are also used in the automotive industry or the airline industry, where they must by law contain flame retardants to slow the spread of flame should there be a fire in your car. But they are very toxic. So that's kind of another talk we'll have on your car. And the airplane, we talked already about some of this. But they're also in the shoes because sometimes the shoe industry buys the same materials that the auto industry buys, and the manufacturers don't want to change the manufacturing process just because they're making it for a shoe versus a car, which means they could contain flame retardants in them. Flame retardants come out in the dust and then they can impact you. Okay, next page just has 2 chemicals. One of them is a fluorinated greenhouse gas that's not typically in the material, but it's used as a processing aid. So it gets into the environment. It's like a greenhouse gas. And then formaldehyde. Formaldehyde comes from wood. All natural wood has formaldehyde in it. It is a carcinogenic gas, but it is also an additive to different things like leathers in the footwear industry as a solvent. And then when it evaporates from the shoe while you own it, that new shoe smell, that can be toxic to you because it's a carcinogen. All right, so then next page has about 4 chemicals. These are heavy metals. So lots of heavy metals are used in foams. Different types of foams can use heavy metals sometimes as a catalyst. And then they're also used in colorants. They're also used as catalysts in sometimes the textile itself. And they can be toxic to you or more often the environment. And so Nike is banning a lot of these things because they either get in the environment or directly get on your skin. Here's another page run. I don't know what page this is. We're on page 50 out of 35. So we're 15 pages into their list of chemicals. 2 chemicals on this page. The big one here is chromium 6 or hexavalent chromium. It's carcinogenic and it's toxic. And if it's on the textile itself, it can get onto your blood and into your skin. Okay, next page has 3 heavy metals again. Lead, cobalt are 2 of the big ones. We don't want those on our skin or in our bodies. Next page is, again, we're on page 52. There's still more chemicals. These are heavy metals again, in this case, nickel and mercury. And we're continuing on with metals. So Nike does sell some jewelry. So they've got metals, heavy metals levels in jewelry. Some jewelry can be made of tin or brass or copper and have heavy metals in it that you don't want on your body. So they're restricting these. Okay, we're on like page almost 55. There's more heavy metals. Now we're on to nitrosamines and monomers. Monomers just means like plastic. So when you make a plastic, it's called a polymer. And to make a polymer, you connect many different lengths of monomers. So what happens is when you make a polymer, you're polymerizing the plastic, but there's residual stuff that didn't get linked in or connected. And that is usually volatile and it evaporates. And if it evaporates and you breathe it in, not so good. So they've got a couple of those monomer chemicals that they limit. And I'm just going to keep going. We're on page, let's get up to 60. It's still going. There's another 25 chemicals on page 61. I'm still going through and scrolling. Okay, so they ended up at 67 pages. So from 35 to 67, that's 32 pages of chemicals of concern in shoes. That's just Nike's list. And that doesn't mean that's everything and all encompassing, but that's a pretty big list for toxic chemicals that can appear in shoes. Wow. Okay. I feel like that's all we need to do. But how do you know those chemicals are in your shoe? Well, I guess you could buy from Nike. I would say that they must have shoes that conform to their list. So I would probably trust some of their shoes to be lower toxicity than other manufacturers. I'm not saying that I like Nike. In fact, I don't own even one pair, and I'm not joking. I do not have one pair of Nike. I don't own any Reebok. I don't even know what the other big brands are because I don't buy their shoes. And we're going to talk about that reason next. But first, just know that there are these chemicals. You can ask your shoe manufacturer, and you should be doing some sort of your own research before you buy something that you're going to wear every day of your life and put on your feet, which absorb lots and lots of things into them. That's why they've got sweat glands in them, so they can be more absorbent. Specifically, that is so you can absorb electrons from the earth and dump positive charge or inflammation back into the earth when you stand on it barefoot. But that also goes against you when you're wearing shoes or toxic socks, let's say. So be aware, lots of toxic chemicals that can appear in footwear, and best to do your own due diligence. I will tell you what I do, which is go barefoot nearly 100% of the time, unless I have to go into a store, and then I'm going to wear a pair of natural socks, either wool or cotton, and I'm going to wear a pair of barefoot shoes. So I'm showing you a website. It's called Xeroshoes. There's two brands of barefoot shoes that I wear, and the reason I wear barefoot shoes, number one, is they do look at some of the chemistry and the materials that they're using more closely than a lot of other manufacturers because they know that their consumers care. These are not mass-produced shoes for everybody, and they just fly off the shelf at the mall. If anyone ever goes to the mall anymore, I don't know where people buy shoes nowadays. Maybe it's on Amazon. But these are for an audience that really cares about what's on their body, in their body, and I think you should definitely care. So are your shoes toxic? There's certainly chemicals in them we saw that can make them toxic, but you could also be wearing high heels. So let me show you. This is our famous barefoot shoe post. We haven't changed this post in, almost 5 years. So these pictures are pretty old in here. However, this does show you, it looks like it was updated in 2020, but a lot of this content was written 5 years ago. And what it shows you is a high heel on men's shoes. We all know that women have high heel shoes that they can wear out, but men, this is a men's dress shoe. These are actually my shoes. One is a barefoot shoe and one is a men's dress shoe with an extremely elevated heel. And what's happening is it's shortening your heel cord in your leg. It's putting your body at an angle that it's not meant to walk around in that angle, which can cause ankle, foot, knee, hip, and back problems by elevating your heel. So therefore, part of shoes toxicity is not what's in the shoe, but how the shoe is shaped. And you want to wear barefoot shoes with what's called a zero drop. And I've got a photo coming up here of zero drop shoes. And zero drop means there is no elevation between the heel and the toe. So I'm showing a pair of Vivo barefoot with no drop in the heel to the toe. And I thought that I had a really good picture here of one of those crazy shoes that had a really high heel, but it doesn't look like that one's in here. What I do have in here are a whole lot of shoes that are zero drop and barefoot shoes that you can purchase on Xeroshoes or Vivo Barefoot. I've got some kind of brands called, I think this is Sanuk. This was Ariat. Ariat used to do a barefoot kind of woodsman leather shoe. It's really beautiful. I'm showing it on the screen. I don't think they make it anymore. It's one of the top questions I get is where people can get this shoe. And they always ask me what this shoe is. And if you look really closely, you'll see the Ariat symbol kind of embossed into the shoe. So you can tell that it's an Ariat shoe. So you want to look for dress shoes, gym shoes, running shoes, hiking shoes. So I'm showing a pair of hiking barefoot shoes as well as a pair of winter barefoot shoes that don't have an elevation of the heel above the toe. And you also want what's called a wide toe box for your feet to spread out. When we step on those feet and apply pressure, put pressure on your hand on the ground, and you'll see the bones tend to spread out. And I showed a picture somewhere in here of my foot with what happens when we crunch our feet into these narrow toe boxes. It artificially molds our feet over numerous years in these crazy positions. And then people need or think they need foot surgery for bunions and for other things from shoving their feet into the wrong type of shoes. Go barefoot as often as you possibly can. And when you need to wear shoes, wear a pair of barefoot shoes with wide toe boxes. There are so many styles. I just love Xeroshoes and Vivo Barefoot. I'm showing them the Vivo Barefoot that I own. And I want to say these shoes that I'm showing in this photo are the Vivo Barefoot Sami Light 2. Those are winter shoes. The Vivo Barefoot hiking shoes, which are the Tracker FG2s. The Vivo Barefoot Gobi 2. I bought these in 2016 and I still have and use every single pair that you see here. I can show you today these pairs of shoes on my shoe rack, and I have worn them every single winter for the last 6 years, and they're still going. Like, how's that for durability in a shoe if you're going to buy it once and forget it? I also have Xeroshoes that I've had for the last 4 years. I've got some really dressy shoes I'm showing here. These are all barefoot shoes with wider toe boxes that I'm showing. And these are all shoes that I personally own and have tried out. And there are some that I don't recommend. You know, I honestly have tried Lems and people love them, but I do not like their shoes, so I don't wear them. I'm showing here a pair from, what was this called? It was like Prime Trotter. Prime Trotter makes handcrafted, bespoke, one-of-a-kind. You pick out the leather, choose the broguing you want, pick the color of leather, and then choose the design. And then you draw your foot onto a piece of paper and send it to them, and they craft a pair of shoes just for you. So I had these 2 shoes handcrafted for me by Prime Trotter. They used to offer our community a discount. They don't do any discounts for anyone anymore, but they do have beautiful shoes. Okay, so obviously these are other shoes that were sent to me. I forgot a lot of shoes that were sent over. These are my Xeroshoes. These are kind of my go-to everyday walk-around shoes and gym shoes, and I've been using these for 4 years. They're still going. They've got a 5,000-mile tread warranty. Really cool. But I mean, look at this. You can get anywhere. From like the theater, there's me in the theater district. Well, that's Times Square, but walking back from the theater district in New York City with like fancy dress shoes all the way to, rugged hiking shoes. So don't think that you have to compromise your feet to wear barefoot shoes. So like, here's the Xeroshoes page. Like I said, I love Xeroshoes, but just look, they've got sandals, and the Jesus sandals, I call these ones with the strap and the heel cord. And then they've got running shoes, and they've got hiking shoes, and they've got some really beautiful winter boots as well. So, you can go to these women's shoes. I will show you a pair of the winter boots that all the women rave about. And after Heidi tomorrow from our channel bought this pair, I think literally every one of her friends bought a pair of these shoes. They are called the Alpine Women's Snow Boot. And they've got a sale going on. So right now they do have a sale for like 20% off their latest styles. So it's a really good deal. If you go through the link on our page or on the YouTube channel, we do get a commission from them, and you still get that discount from Xeroshoes. But I only promote these shoes because I love them. And Vivo Barefoot are the other shoes that we do talk about a lot, because the only barefoot shoes I wear, other than the dressy Prime Trotter, are Vivo Barefoot and Xeroshoe. And they last forever. They have warranties. They honor them. Xero sent me a new pair of shoes when I did have one issue with my sole of the shoe, and they sent me a brand new pair right away. I had to send them a photo and tell them what happened, and they just sent off a new pair. It was awesome. So these are the other shoes that I really love is Vivo Barefoot because, again, healthy shoes, wide toe box, and barefoot style. I think it's hugely important, and it's not just me. Here's Kelly Starrett, who's a PhD in physical therapy, and so he's quoted as saying, and this is the photo that I'm showing, if you're a world-class runner and you can't handle 8 minutes of barefoot running, you're truly not world-class. Barefoot running, walking, and hiking. Yes, I've hiked the Colorado Rocky Mountains, Tamara and I both, barefoot, obviously during the fall, not during the winter, but it can be done and it improves your feet. If you're mindful, don't go clodding around, but be mindful when you're barefoot and soak up those electrons, and it heals your feet. Part of the toxicity of shoes is cramming them into narrow spaces for long periods of time and lifting the heel, which completely distorts the human body. So there was a book by Kelly Starrett I like to refer to called Ready to Run, but also his earlier book called Supple Leopard or Becoming a Supple Leopard. And he talks a lot about barefoot running, barefoot walking, and barefoot shoes because of the effects on the body that has. And so here's a photo of Kelly Starrett. I think this is also really important, is getting yourself into these positions. He's in a full squat position. He's wearing jeans, a pair of sneakers, and a t-shirt. So he's not lifting weights. He's just squatting down like people would have done for all of human history. And many people can no longer do this with their bodies. This is just something that going barefoot can bring you back to, is it can bring you back to your body and move the toxicity that's in your body out. If we can't properly move our bodies, we get stagnation and we get inflammation and we get things that don't move, energy that doesn't move, and things that build up that are no longer good for us. We need to wear the proper footwear, which most of the time is no footwear, to create health in the body and get rid of the toxicity. So, are your shoes toxic? It depends. What shoes are you wearing? How are you wearing them? And how often are you removing those shoes? And that's going to tell you all you need to know.